Hi, I'm Jackie Tantillo, and this is Should Have Listened to My Mother. I'm very excited to welcome Jonathan Robinson to Should Have Listened to My Mother this week. You may recognize his name or his philosophies. Jonathan is a researcher, seeker, psychotherapist, author, public speaker, and teacher of awakening and enlightenment practices. His most recent book is The Enlightenment Project, How I Went from Depressed to Blessed, and You Can Too. And it encompasses literally decades of Jonathan's journey of searching and seeking and studying ways to find peace, awareness, and enlightenment. I find that just listening to Jonathan's calm demeanor and his sense of humor brings brevity to a subject that can be overwhelming for some, especially a novice. He's taken healing and meditation techniques that are centuries wise and has simplified them for the 21st century with the same benefits as long ago. It wasn't always easy for Jonathan. As a teen, he suffered from depression and suicidal tendencies, and because of these challenges, his self-help journey began. He says he's grateful for his difficult years because they got him moving. And of course, we're going to find out about the role that his mother played in his life throughout this journey. Jonathan Robinson, welcome to Should Have Listened to My Mother.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jackie.
Again, your book, The Enlightenment Project, was recently published, and I found that you're very generous and giving and humble in your writing. And to your readers, your patients, your students, your fan base, is that all part of the journey that you've been on? Does that encompass achieving this bliss that we're all supposed to be looking for?
Well, as you mentioned in your intro, I was blessed to have a difficult childhood. So I kind of had my midlife crisis at age 12 and got into self-help and spirituality and meditation by the time I was 13. And, I got very lucky in that I developed a hobby of interviewing and getting to know a lot of the spiritual leaders in the world, everybody from the late Mother Teresa and Ram Dass and Wayne Dyer to the Dalai Lama and Deepak Chopra. And I'm really just trying to pass on what I've learned from all these people, because now my life is really good. And I think that if people have the right ideas and methods for finding peace within, that it's possible. It was possible for me. And I started, in a place where I was suicidal. So I think it's really possible for anyone.
At that young age, because I certainly wasn't there in your wisdom and foresight, what is it that sparked this quest to find something to heal yourself as opposed to going to the doctor and getting medication or whatever the other alternatives were at the time? How did you know? Who are you?
Well, I did have an uncle who was a hypnotist, and one day he hypnotized my very shy sister into thinking she was Mick Jagger, and she got up on a table and started belting out, "I can't get no satisfaction." And I thought, wow, I'd like to be Mick Jagger or anybody other than who I am in this family. And so I got into hypnosis and other things at age 12. And, I did that because there really weren't a lot of options. I couldn't leave my family, but I got the idea that if I could control my mind, I might be able to reduce my suffering and eventually kind of create my own reality. And in fact, that has happened.
Is anyone else in your family have mental illness?
Both my brother and sister have been in and out of mental hospitals and did not take that path of self-help and spirituality, and they are suffering. I try to help them when I can, but it's sad that most people who are having a hard time, they don't necessarily connect with the right ideas and methods that could make their life better. So, I'm trying to do that. I give away what I consider the greatest hits that I've learned from all these people, mostly for free or $15 at most in a book, and a lot of free stuff on my websites, because I think if people did have the right tools that they could be resilient and survive almost anything.
It's so true. And another great aspect of this is that you talk about destigmatizing an illness, in this case, mental illness, so then we can help one another.
Yeah, and recently there's been a lot of talk about healing from trauma and things like that, and I think that's a step in the right direction. There is a science to going from stressed out or depressed to being blissed out, and that science has gone more specific in the last 10 years. A lot of people are using even spiritual methods that are 2,000 years old, but they wouldn't consider using a computer that's even 20 years old. So the technology, we'll call it, or the methods for finding inner peace, bliss, and love actually have gone much, much better in the last 5 years. And most people are not aware of these, what I call power tools, that can really make a difference in a person's life.
There's definitely a dynamic in your family that was challenging, right, as you're growing up. I would like to talk about your mom, if we could. Could you please tell us her name and the role? Was she the queen of the roost?
Well, my mom's name was Sandra, and she was a very powerful woman. She's gone now. Very intense, and luckily, the last 20 years of her life, we had a really good relationship and very sweet. But growing up, she mostly spent most of her time yelling and screaming at my dad and then my stepfather. So I didn't get to see her a lot or spend much time with her. I got the message, like, you guys kind of have to cook dinner for yourself and take care of yourself, because both my mother and stepfather really seemed to enjoy arguing, and that's how they spent most of their time. And so I got to know that, really I needed to take care of myself, which is a good way of entering life in a certain way, because you become more self-sufficient. And I just really didn't spend much time with her until the last 20 years of her life.
And was she working? Was she home and just didn't want to engage? Or what kind of a day-to-day activities was she involved in?
Yeah, she worked as a teacher, and I hear was a very good teacher, but she'd come home and then there'd be really nonstop arguments with my stepfather, and we'd have the police called on us maybe once a month because they were get very intense. In fact, now I have a big hearing deficit. I have to wear 2 hearing aids because I was subjected to very, very loud noises for a long time. I mean, I can laugh at it now. At the time, it was very painful. And I'm grateful for it now because, that is what led to me getting into this stuff at a young age. But, a lot of people have families or situations that are rather desperate. And I think that most of the people who I know who are really strong mentally and emotionally and spiritually did have to endure really hard things as a child.
And they were able to receive that message that it's like fight or flight or survival mode, and they went in their own direction. Yeah.
In the 90s, I got to be on the Oprah show a bunch, and I talked to her about she made my childhood look like, a bliss. She was, gang raped twice by the time she was 14. And had a stillborn child at age 15. So I think one of the reasons why she's been able to maintain such a good focus while being so famous is that, the roots go deep, that she really had to find something within herself that helped guide her for the rest of her life.
Her perspective is clearly different from so many others, and we know what can happen. So many people get lost, right? They could just go down that deep, dark tunnel because they are not able to have that foothold elsewhere. So your mom,
Yeah.
later on, there is a funny story that I heard you tell about your mom because she wouldn't let you meditate in the house, correct? She was a little
Yeah,
weary.
I didn't know. That is a funny story. So, I'm meditating like age 14, 15, whatever, and she wouldn't let me meditate in the house. So I would meditate in the garage, which was cold, and I would just do that every day, twice a day. Well, at the time, I said to her, well, Mother, someday even your doctor will tell you that you need to meditate. And so fast forward maybe 45, 50 years, I get a call from my mom. By now, we have a good relationship, and she excitedly tells me, I went to the doctor today, and guess what he told me to do? I said, what? I was a little concerned. And she said, he told me I need to meditate every day. And and we both laughed and said, and then I said, aha, victory is mine, or something like that. And it was a real sweet moment.
Did she meditate? Did she wind up meditating?
She did. As you know, I have a podcast called Awareness Explorers, and at awarenessexplorers.com, there's a place where it says meditations. And when I ask somebody like the Dalai Lama or Deepak Chopra, I say, please give me your best 10-minute guided meditation. So there's like 80 guided meditations on that site for free. And my mom actually started listening to them, and she said that she found them very, very relaxing.
Amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Had she only listened to you 50 years earlier, that would have been great. And I wanted to ask, what did she teach your mom?
She was a third grade teacher, and she really enjoyed little kids. I think she did instill my love for learning to some extent, or maybe a big extent. I love learning new things, and she would sometimes encourage my getting into new ideas and philosophies and such. And that was helpful because I'm a very curious person, and I think part of that came from her encouragement.
Right. So the picture I see, I don't see you like cuddled up with her in a chair, big comfy chair, reading books when you were little. Was she that kind of mom?
Well, when she wasn't arguing with my dad or stepfather, I do. It's hard to overemphasize how much that happened. They really just liked going at it with each other. But I do have some happy memories of her like teaching me to read as a 3 or 4-year-old. And those are some of the sweetest early memories I remember.
And thank goodness that she did that, right? Those are priceless memories.
Yeah, definitely.
So as you look back on your life and your experiences, and for people who don't know, as I mentioned, this is, I think, your 14th book that you've released, The Enlightenment Project.
Yeah.
You have had many interactions with healers and gurus, and your first book was The Experience of God, and you have wonderful stories to share about Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama, Deepak Chopra, and Wayne Dyer, who many people know as well, and you went on to Oprah's shows a couple of times. But is there, and I know you mentioned that all of this past has helped you become who you are, other than humility and not taking yourself too seriously, what is it that can help one move forward to even find that, or be inspired to find the inner peace?
Uh-huh.
Our ego can't be involved, right?
Well, I think a healthy ego that is interested in just trying new stuff, I talk about what I call an experimental attitude. Try a bunch of stuff, try different religions, try different methods, try different meditations, and see what works for you. If you try a bunch of stuff, you'll eventually find something that you go, hey, that really works, and then you have a friend for life. So I think one of the things I learned from a lot of these gurus and spiritual teachers was there's a lot of possible things out there for healing and for quieting your mind. And your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to try stuff and see what works for you. So, that's been a process. But once I found, say, a certain meditation technique that really worked for me, that changed my life, because you can meditate anytime. And if you can bring that love and peace into each day, that's better than $1 million or $1 billion, or it's better than many of the things that we're told to put hope in. So, put your hope in finding peace and love within, because when people put their hope in, say, the world of money or even relationships, or that the world would be a peaceful place, it's kind of hopeless, because we really don't have control over those things a lot of the time.
In your book, one of the many things I liked about it, you have come up with these, and I think it's great, because typically when someone says, oh, you should start meditating, I always think of, oh my God, I don't have 45 minutes a day, or I'm not interested, or I'm not there yet to do 45 minutes to an hour sitting uncomfortably in a chair where my legs are supposed to be crossed and I can't think of anything else. And, that whole thing, you're doing everything that you're not supposed to be doing. But you have, over the years and from all of your learning, is that you have lent brevity to these possibilities for anyone and everyone to do it any second or minute of the day.
Yeah, luckily I'm lazy, so I specialize in...
I heard you say that.
So I specialized in methods that mostly can be done in under 3 minutes. And, I take like a couple-minute break throughout the day, and I rest back into deep peace, and that makes everything a lot better. And so, I kind of presented in the Enlightenment Project the greatest hits of those methods, because most people are totally unaware of these things. They don't know that they exist, and a lot of them were really just invented in the last 5 or 10 years.
And something else that I believe it was mentioned in your book, whatever is happening in your life, root for it to go that way. Instead of saying, crap, my life's going to whoop, whatever you want to call it, you say, embrace that.
Well, it's really a matter of what you resist persists. So our relationship with a lot of the people and situations in our life is to just resist it and contract and say it shouldn't be there. And that doesn't do any good. So once you just say, well, I'm going to allow it to be exactly as it is, just that statement, if you can relax with this moment of exactly how it is, then you have a lot more peace in that moment. And since we only live in this moment, if you can find a way to not resist the moment you're in, you're going to have a lot more peace. Or, just being grateful for the moment that you're in. Like, thank you that I have this moment of life. Something I do throughout the day is I'll look for little delightful moments, like, smooching my dog, who I love very much. I'll say, that's magic. I'll thank God, or I'll thank the universe for having such a sweet moment. And it kind of retrains the brain that there's a lot of sweet moments in our life if we just recognize them.
You mentioned all different religions. And what if someone's an agnostic? Can they do this path as well?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that being agnostic is smart. You're saying you're not sure, so keep exploring. But most of the methods in the Enlightenment Project, if not all of them, don't require believing in a higher power. It's really believing that there's a deeper level of peace within you, and that you can find that. Now, believing in a higher power can be useful for some methods, but it's certainly not required.
I had I was up during the night, and I guess I was thinking about our interview and what I had read in your book. And for some reason, it was a beautiful image, and I hope it works for you, but it was a parachute. It was a beautiful parachute that was just gracefully transcending down through the sky. And what was tied to the rope, the string, was your book, the purple book, The Enlightenment Project. And you were it was being delivered. And it was just so peaceful and wonderful because you have put all that you've experienced down on paper for so many to pick up and to explore. And that is just such a gift that you've given us.
Well, it's been fun for me, and, I get to read it too. Sometimes I need those reminders as well.
Yeah, I guess being human is part of the whole healing process to accepting. So I want to make sure we mention the Enlightenment Project, again, your most recent book, your podcast, Awareness Explorers, and you have a co-host, Brian Tom O'Connor, that joins you on that show.
You've done your homework, Jackie. I'm impressed.
Your website, theenlightenmentproject.net. There are some goodies there that my listeners can benefit from. If you go to theenlightenmentproject.net, tell us about that, please.
Well, if they put in their email, they get the first chapter of their book and ebook of my 5 favorite ways to quiet your mind that each take less than a minute to do. And again, audio meditation of those 5 methods presented in my voice. So I think it's a very powerful way to really find inner peace rather quickly.
Lots of great learning, and it's not heavy-duty, complicated. We all have busy lives, but it's a really wonderful book to pick up and explore. And there was one last concept I wanted to mention. You mentioned aware is or awareness.
Well, it's just a simple method to find peace is you try to describe what awareness is or try to describe what love is with a friend back and forth. And as you describe these things, you start to experience them. And that can be a great gift.
Jonathan Robinson, thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing stories about your mom, Sandra. I'm glad that you were able to become friends. That's the most important part, that you had that connection.
Yeah, it's really nice when you become friends with your mother before they pass. It makes the passing a lot easier, and I'm really grateful that she and I had a wonderful connection by the end of her life.
Jonathan Robinson, my guest on this week's episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother.
Thank you, Jackie. You have a beautiful day.